Hey, if you have a Bible, I hope you do, or your phone, can you go to Romans chapter 12 with me today? Romans chapter 12. We started a series last week. It's called One Another. Here's what we're doing for the summer. It'll take us all the way through the month of August. We are looking at New Testament passages that use that phrase, one another. It actually happens a lot in the Bible. We see some kind of command about how we are to treat one another. So last week, Pastor Jeff, he started with love one another. That's actually the most repeated one another there is in the New Testament. We are to love one another. Next week, we're going to look at a passage that tells us to teach one another. This summer, we're going to a number of places like bear with one another, confess our sin to one another, pray for one another, stir one another up to love and good deeds, don't lie to one another. And so there's a lot of one another's we're going to look at. Now, here's why. Here's why we are doing this series. Really simply, because I believe this, the Christian life is a one another life. That's what the Christian life is. It's a one another life. We are called as believers to grow together, to serve one another. The Christian life is, we talk about this a lot, is one that happens in community. As iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. That's how the Christian life ought to be. It's meant to be lived out together. Now, here's the reality, and I think you know this. One anothering, I made up that word, one anothering isn't easy, but it is necessary. One anothering is not an easy thing, but it's a necessary thing for your life. Now, I didn't know this. You probably knew this, but I didn't know it. Me and my wife bought our house about 15 years ago or so. When we bought it, the nice house that we live in, but had a yard, which was on the side of the house, just a huge mound of dirt. And then just kind of, it wasn't even grass, weeds, just that kind of grew around the yard there. Like the person who lived before us had not actually got arrested for drug use or something in prison, but had not taken care of the yard. That was too much information. But had not taken care of the yard. It was a mess, and so we built a fence and shoveled, just loads and loads of dirt and leveled the thing out and planted grass, and we planted trees, like fruit trees, kind of around the yard, and there's bushes, all this stuff. Have a little garden in the backyard that my wife likes to grow, vegetables and stuff in. But one of the first things we bought, actually, Carissa really wanted to have blueberry plants, to grow like blueberries. She loves them, and wanted to have that. And so we go down to, I don't know, nursery or something to get a blueberry bush, call it a bush, a plant, whatever, that we're gonna plant. And I did not know this. We could not just buy one. You have to buy two because they cross-pollinate with one another. If you only had one, at least of the variety that we were buying, you buy this one, and then we had to buy a specific kind, another variety of blueberry plant that we would plant next to each other, because if they were alone, if you just had one of them, they wouldn't produce blueberries. You needed a second so that both of them would produce blueberries. So this time of year, blueberries are growing, and my son Tucker runs out there every morning and eats them all. Anyone he can find that's blue and ready to be eaten. But you needed both of them. And I say that because there is something about this one another in life. It's not easy, but it's actually necessary. For us to grow, we need one another. And so what I want to talk about this summer is, what does that actually look like? To live in community, in a church setting, what does it look like to be in relationship with one another? Because the reality is this, the gospel that is changing us. The gospel creates a new people, not just a new person. We made this sign back in the fall, made new, and all these light bulbs represent people who've chosen to give their life to Jesus. I think we started this board the last week of September. Very exciting, but we use that phrase made new because when you became a Christian, you were made new. But not only are we made new individually, we're also a new people. We're called into a new kind of community, one in which we treat each other differently because of our faith. So last week was love one another. In fact, I think everything we're going to talk about this summer is just rooted out of that baseline understanding. We are to love one another. Now today, go to Romans chapter 12. Let me read to you just the first part of verse 16. And this is what we're going to look at today, this one another verse. It says this is Paul speaking. Live in harmony with one another. And I highlighted it for you because this is the one another verse that we're going to look at today. Live in harmony with one another. It's a command to you and me that we would live in harmony together with one another. Now that phrase, live in harmony, it's a translation of a Greek phrase that literally means this: be of one mind. Be of one mind, or of the same mind. The ESV, that's what I'm reading from. Maybe you have an NIV. They translate it the same way, live in harmony. The CSB, Christian Standard Bible, translates it as be in agreement with one another. This kind of idea that we're of the same minds. We're living in harmony. It's not a call. And the reason why the ESV translates it as live in harmony, not like the literal, like have the same minds, because it's not a call for all of us to be identical. It's not, because we live in a group of people. We have different personalities. We have different opinions, different experiences. We're at different levels of spiritual maturity. But the call here of Paul to us is that we would live in harmony. We are different, but we are harmonious. That's the call, at least, in how we would live together. Now, oftentimes when we think of unity in the church, and this is true, in fact, Paul spent the first 11 chapters of the book of Romans describing to us what faith is, what salvation is, what that looks like. We were lost, but we have been found. We were dead in our sins. The wages of sin is death, but the gift of God is eternal life. 11 chapters about our faith and salvation. What unites us as a church is that we have the same belief. We believe in the same God. But what is going to harmonize us is actually how we treat one another, how the gospel plays out in our life. Because we can be united by the same belief, but not be in a church that's harmonious. Isn't that true? When you think of the word harmony, you think of music, right? Now, I cannot sing harmony. I can barely sing melody. I am not a good singer. Now, harmony is a way in which people are singing different notes, but it sounds pretty. So let me show you on the piano, because you don't want me to sing it, right? So when we do, like, harmony, you can have a note. But if you have a note and you add a fifth, oh, doesn't that sound kind of pretty, right? We get some harmony. If you add a third and a fifth, that's pretty sounding, right? That's what it ought to be. And when people play stuff, and it actually starts to, I was going to play a song, but now I'm scared. Because I don't know if I remember how to do it. Right? It sounds pretty. Like when you play notes that all go together. Now, here's the thing, though. It's possible to have the exact same keyboard, right? The exact same notes that are being played, and for it to sound incredibly not good, right? Because they're not played in any way that sounds good at all. So there's something about a harmonious group of people that is beautiful, but it's also possible to be a group of people who are not in harmony, and it's not beautiful, it's ugly, actually. It actually becomes incredibly destructive. Now, here's why I think this one another, live in harmony with one another, is so important. 2 reasons. Number one, because a church that is not in harmony, it hurts people. Isn't that true? A church that's not in harmony with one another actually hurts people. It's what actually might lead to what we would call church hurt. That we've been hurt by people in the church. Maybe the way we were treated, unkind things that were said, when help was needed, it didn't come, pride, anger, selfishness, all of it's kind of winning the day at the expense of one another. And I know this, actually, just in many conversations I have, we actually have a lot of people at Redemption Church who are recovering church hurt people that have been hurt by churches and by people, by believers, but have found a home here at Redemption. And praise God for that. But the reality is that people in a church that can hurt each other can be incredibly destructive to people. Just the other day, actually, there's this guy I know I've been getting to know, and I know his family. His kids play baseball with my son, and he's actually the grandpa, and I asked him, I said, hey, why don't you come to church sometime? You should come check it out. I'm preaching this Sunday. You ought to come check it out. Really good for you to come. And you know what he said to me? He goes, absolutely not. And I was actually taken aback, because actually most of the time I found this in my life, when I invite people to church, maybe they don't want to come. They just say, no, thank you, or I'm busy. Or they say they'll be there and never show up. But they never say, absolutely not. And I was like, whoa, oh, okay. And he said, I did that church thing. Not for me. People are just mean. That's what he said. And we didn't press into that. I was more kind of shook in the moments by that statement. I don't know what it is, but I'm going to guess this. A church that's not in harmony hurts people, that he's one of those people, right, that have been hurt by the church. This is so important because we don't want to hurt each other. A church that is not in harmony, not only does it hurt people, here's the second thing, it hurts the testimony of Christ. We are the body of Christ. We are ambassadors of Jesus, that when people see us, they begin to see something of who our God is, of who Jesus is. And so a church that's not in harmony actually hurts the testimony of God. Our unity, our care for one another is either going to be attractive, beautiful, or it will be ugly and repulsive. So we can hurt each other, but we can also bring a bad reputation to Jesus. Now here's the thing, I think. When we think about harmony and how it plays out, we can look at a church and a group of people and we can be like, yeah, that sounds weird. That sounds weird. I don't, there's something wrong there, right? But what we fail to realize sometimes is that the problem actually is me, right? We're so good at pointing the finger. Maybe we can identify, man, there's real issues there. There's something wrong there. But here's what I want to do today. Because it's so easy in our church life actually to say, that's so true for everybody else. But here's what I want to do for you today. I want to invite you to just consider, what does it look like for you to play a role in a church that is harmonious, that's living in harmony with one another? Now, in order to do that, let's zoom out. I want to look at some other parts of Romans chapter 12 together. And let me make this statement if you're a note taker. Harmony isn't accidental. It is intentional, right? Harmony in a church is not accidental. My 3-year-old son, Tucker, he doesn't play the piano accidentally and play like a nice tune. It has to be very intentional. And this has to be the same for your life, that we be intentional in how we treat one another. Now, I want to move back and look at verse 9. And we'll kind of work through this section here because Paul's describing what it looks like to be a follower of Jesus. And this is true not only in the local church, it's actually just broadly true of what it means to be a believer. He says this, let love be genuine. Abhor what is evil, hold fast to what is good. Verse 10, love one another with brotherly affection. That's actually the one another that we looked at last week, that we would love one another with brotherly affection. And then he says this, outdo one another in showing honor. That's another one another statement. In fact, later this summer, Jason's going to preach on that one. Outdo showing one another honor. So we'll come back to that later. Verse 11 says this, do not be slothful in zeal, be fervent in spirit, serve the Lord. Verse 12, rejoice in hope, be patient in tribulation, be constant in prayer. All descriptions, I would argue, of what it looks like to be in harmony with one another. We want to be doing these things. But now, verse 12 says, or verse 13 then says this, and this is where I want to kind of begin to slow down. It says this, and contribute to the needs of the saints and seek to show hospitality. Let's begin to kind of unpack what it looks like to be a church that is harmonious. And here's what he begins by saying, contribute to the needs of who? The saints, that's believers, and seek to show hospitality. Interestingly, in a different passage, we'll look at it again later this summer, we're told to show hospitality to one another. So we'll preach on that a different day. But I want to begin here, contribute to the needs of the saints. Christians are to take care of one another, take care of each other's needs. The The verb there contributes to the needs. Korneo, it means like to share with or to share in. The basic meaning is that it's like we're a part of a community, a partnership, which involves mutual sharing with one another. This is actually a defining quality of the early church. In Acts chapter 2, we see that they're praying together, they're learning together, and they're sharing everything in common. And Paul actually uses the same word, contribute, share, in 1 Timothy chapter 6, when he actually tells Timothy this: instruct those who are rich in this present world to be generous and ready to share, ready to contribute to the needs of others. Man, I'm so thankful that I'm a part of a church, you should be too, where we are generous to one another, that we're generous in contributing to the needs of one another. You guys know Roxanne. We've talked about her. She's headed to Brazil to be a missionary. You can keep praying for her. She's trying to get her visa so she can actually leave and go do that. But she's back here right now, no car. And so one of the members of our church said, here's my car. You can drive it while you're here. This is contributing to the needs of the saints. Here's how I want to frame our time. We're going to step through this, work through kind of this part of Romans here. Let me give you 5 thoughts on what harmony looks like, okay? Just kind of help us. And let's begin by saying this. Harmony grows when we share life, not just space. See, we can gather, the church is a people, and we gather and we share this space right now together. We worship and we study the Word of God. But real harmony in a church is when we share life together, not just space. We're not called just to coexist as believers, but to carry each other's burdens. So the first thing we see in verse 13 there is that we share with each other. But then I'll skip down to verse 15. Because then it says this: rejoice with those who rejoice, weep with those who weep. So on the one hand, we are to share like resources, meet the needs of others, but here we see a shared life is that we share in the joys of others. We share in the victories of others. We share in the grief and the pain and the heartache of others. That's a natural part of being in community, that we rejoice with those who rejoice. We weep with those who weep. This verse is really this kind of deep emotional presence that we have with one another as we share life. It's entering into someone else's world. Harmony means that your win feels like my win, that your loss feels like my loss. I think the word we use to describe this is empathy. Webster's dictionary says empathy, the ability to understand and feel the feelings of others. That to be a part of a community, a people of God that are living in harmony, we rejoice with those who rejoice. We weep when others weep. It requires relationships. It requires presence. It requires time. It requires effort. It requires love. So let me just ask you this. Who in your life right now is rejoicing and needs you to celebrate with them, not envy them? Who is mourning right now and needs your presence, not your advice? Who's in need and God has placed you in a unique place to actually help with that need? This is a church in harmony. Now go to verse 16, because here we already looked at it. Live in harmony with one another. Then here's the next command. Do not be haughty. Do not be haughty. The NIV says, don't be proud. You know what kills harmony in a church? Prideful people. It does. Let me say it this way. I told you 5 things I want to draw out of this. Here's the second thing. Harmony begins where pride ends. Harmony begins where pride ends. In fact, it's impossible to build or sustain harmony where pride is allowed to live. You ever been to like a little kids choir concert? My kids' little kids choir, like elementary school. Or actually, here's a better example. Don't take offense, parents. Like on at Christmas time, we always have like a kids like little production up here, super cute. Kids get up here. There's usually like a little kids choir somewhere up here that's singing. You know how sometimes there's that one kid who just sings louder than any other kid, and it's super cute, and they're belting it. Maybe they're on pitch, maybe they're not, but you can't hear anyone else because they're just like belting out that song as loud as they can. You know what I'm talking about? Like that moment or whatever. It's cute because it's kids. It doesn't matter. But that's not harmony. That's one person who's like, I got this! And they're going to sing as loud as they can. You know what's the worst in a church? Is when someone's like, look at me. Look what I got. And puts themselves above others. Harmony begins when we stop making everything about us, our status, our opinions, our comfort zones, and begin to think about others. Dietrich Bonhoeffer, he wrote a couple different books, incredible books that he wrote. One of his books, Life Together, he said this, and I love this quote. He said this, "The person who loves their dream of community will destroy community, but the person who loves those around them will create community." I love that because we can get caught up in our own vision of what maybe it would look like to be in relationship with people. This has got to happen. Why isn't this activity happening? Why don't we do this thing? Oh, they're hurting me. Or if they would just stop saying that. No, what he said is this. Just here's the deal. This is what real community harmony looks like. Look around you and love people. Just look around. How can I engage in people today? This is harmony. This is actually a bringing down of myself. That's why he says in verse 16, don't be haughty, but one, associate with the lowly. And then he says, never be wise in your own sight. Associate with the lowly. True humility doesn't look down, it actually steps down. Pride has a way of putting up walls between you and me. Invisible walls that separate us, but humility will begin to break down those walls. We're told never be wise in your own sight. It's one thing to step down, but man, you can step down and still be a know-it-all. You can step down and still be one who, like, man, look at me. I'm the wisest one here. I got the best idea. I know what you should do. Man, are there people in your life that you're tempted to avoid because you don't want to associate with that? You're above that. Are you actively trying to speak in a way and act a way that comes from a heart of humility? Harmony begins when pride ends. Okay, so we're sharing life, we're choosing humility. Now look at verse 17 and verse 19. We'll come back to 18 in a second. Verse 17 says this, repay no one evil for evil. Underline it. Repay no one evil for evil, but give thought to do what is honorable in the sight of all. And now skip verse 19. Beloved, never avenge yourselves. Underline that one. Never. But leave it to the wrath of God, for it is written, vengeance is mine, I will repay, says the Lord. So we're sharing life. We're stepping down. We're choosing humility over pride. Now here's the third thing. Harmony leaves room for God to judge. Harmony leaves room for God to be the one who judges. In fact, it is such strong language here. And this is applicable not just in the church, but actually in all of life. Never take vengeance onto yourself. Never get up into the judge's chair. This is applied everywhere. Never take vengeance. Not against your spouse who was insensitive and uncaring after you had a hard day. Don't take vengeance. Not against that sister who borrowed your jeans without asking. Don't take vengeance. Not against the guy at work who spread untrue gossip about you. Don't get him back. Not against the parent who was the parent who disrespected you again, or that child who's just made your life unfairly hard. Not even against the person who's committed a crime against you. We're told don't return evil for evil. Now, when we read Romans chapter 13, just to kind of set this in context, what you'll see is there is a place for civil governments to judge and to punish. But the simple command here we see in chapter 12 is this, that we are never to take upon ourselves personal justice. We leave that to the authority of the states. They're ones who will bring about justice, at least this side of heaven. But now think about the church with me in our faith family. We have to leave room for God to be the one who judges. You know why? Here's two things. One, because you don't know the whole story. We never do. In fact, Paul talks about this, James talks about it in his letter. He says, don't show favoritism to people. Don't do that. You don't know the whole story of what's going on in people's lives. You can't possibly know every detail of every circumstance. Not only do you not know the whole story, but the second thing, God doesn't need your help in judging. He's the one on the judge's seat. You don't have to. harmony will thrive when we just let God be God and we simply care for one another. So I have this image, this sermon illustration in my head. I'm not sure how this will go, but it's like a playgrounds, blacktop, elementary school kids, and there's this boys that are playing basketball, or girls, whatever, and the boy's dribbling, and he takes and he passes it to his friends, but it's Oregon and it's rainy, and his friend slips just as the ball is coming and finds himself on the ground, and the ball flies right over that guy's head, and there's another boy that's standing with his back to the court, and the ball just hits him in the back really hard, and it's elementary school, so he's got his chocolate milk right there, and he's talking to this girl, third grade crush that he has, and the milk just flies right onto the girl right there, and now this guy's like, oh no, he's super embarrassed. The girl's like, what's just happened kind of thing. And the guy turns around and he's angry because this was the girl he's interested in. He just threw chocolate milk all over her and turns around, and what he sees is this guy laying on the ground, and he sees the man over there kind of looking as he had passed it. And it turns out these two have been feuding a little bit because they both like that girl. And then this guy's like, what? And now he's going to go after him. The guy who's on the ground steps up to defend him. It's all chaos, and no one knows really the whole story. It's just because it rained. That's what happens. No one's trying to get anything. And so my point is this, is that really harmony, especially in the church, but this is all of life. We have to leave room for God to be the judge, because you can't see everything clearly. You can't. So don't do it. Just allow God to take care. Vengeance is mine, says the Lord. Now let's go back to verse 18. If possible, so far as it depends on you, underline that one. If possible, so far as it depends on you, live peaceably with all. I honestly think we could probably spend we could spend a whole sermon series on this one verse. If possible. Meaning this, it's not always going to be possible. So far as it depends on you, it's you that are doing something. Live peaceably with all. Not just those you like, not just those you have in common with, not just those that you stand to benefit from should this relationship be repaired, but rather peaceably with all. So let me make my fourth point. It's this: harmony is fueled by the pursuit of peace. This is the harmonious church, when we pursue peace with one another, because never is it described that a harmonious church is where no one ever hurts somebody else. We're sinners. This is going to happen. People are going to say things they regret. People are going to say things they don't regret. But what are we going to do? We're going to pursue peace, because that is what's going to fuel our harmony. And we are told to do it with everyone. But this is not our default position as humans. It's not. You know what's easier to do? Just ignore, cut people out of our lives. This is actually what we do. Got a friend causing problems in your life? Just cut them out. Move on somewhere else. Someone in your small group says some insensitive things? Just leave and find a new one. Someone at work doesn't understand, respect your faith? Just avoid them. But Paul, what he acknowledges here is, no, you need to go pursue peace with people. And he acknowledges the hard truth, if possible. Paul is realistic. He knows that peace isn't always within our control. Some people will not reconcile, no matter how much you try. But it doesn't mean you quit trying. In fact, that's why he says, as far as it depends on you. Harmony starts with your hearts. Harmony starts with your words, your initiative. You can't control their reaction, but you can control your pursuits. It's about taking responsibility for your part in peace. There's a man, Blaine Higa. Most of you know him. His wife, Rachel. He worked at our church, did a number of different things, from youth to worship, college ministry. They live up in Vancouver, Washington now. But he used to talk about this pursuit of peace. And the language he would use, he'd say this, and I loved it. He would say, you're only responsible for your side of the road. You can only clean up your side of the road. You can't clean up theirs. You can't. But you can make sure to apologize what you need to apologize for. You can make sure to treat them kindly, not repay evil for evil. You can go out of your way even to demonstrate grace and love and care. You only can control your side. As much as it depends on you, let it not be because of you that there's no peace. As much as it depends on you, pursue people. Live at peace with everyone. And I already told you, this isn't our default condition. It's not. We're more about getting people back. We're more about cutting people out of our lives. We're going to take communion in just a little bit. And Jesus actually instructed Lord's Supper that when you take this bread and you take the cup, the wine, our case, grape juice, when you take it and you remember Jesus' death and resurrection, you need to do it not in an unworthy manner. And the book of Matthew actually says, and if there's things going on between you and someone else, go deal with that before you take this. Like, go work that thing out. Because communion very much is a community thing. And so go make things right. So ask yourself this. Is there someone that you have given up on, assuming peace is no longer possible? No. Harmony is fueled by the pursuit of peace. As much as it depends on you, we're going to keep pursuing it. Have I used their resistance as an excuse to stop pursuing harmony? They're not interested, so I'm not interested anymore either. No. What does, as far as it depends on me, actually require of you? An apology? A phone call? A listening ear? A note? What would it look like for you to pursue peace with people? Now let's land it in verse 21. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. Fifth point, harmony wins by doing good, not getting even. Harmony wins. We win as a church by doing good, not by getting even. And I love that it says don't be overcome by evil, which is possible in the world we live in, and also possible in a church. But how do we overcome it? We overcome it by doing good to one another. The world says get even. Jesus says do good. And so this is how Paul actually sums up the marks of a Christian, that we choose to do good. And so you make that choice today to do good to one another. This is harmony. This is what it means to live in harmony. So we have this command, live in harmony with one another, share life, practice humility. It's got to get rid of pride, leave room for God to be the judge, pursue peace, and do good. And now we're going to arrive at a time where we're going to take communion together. And communion is a community event. It's something that's done with a group of believers, which is why, and you could push back on this, I don't think that communion was designed to be just something like me and my wife and my kids do on a regular basis at our house when we eat. It's actually something designed to be done amongst the believers, amongst the church, that they would take communion together. And we are told in 1 Corinthians chapter 11 to not take communion in an unworthy manner. And I've reminded of you this consistently, which is why in a second we'll give you time even to consider your own heart, that we're told to examine our own hearts and what's going on. But what's interesting, if you read through the book of 1 Corinthians, there are many different ways in which we are told that we might be living in an unworthy way in relationship with each other. And in 1 Corinthians chapter 11, he tells us don't take it in an unworthy way. So let me just highlight a few of these for you. Just the things that destroy peace, that cause disharmony. He says that what's an unworthy manner? If we're embracing fights, don't embrace fights in the church. If you do that, man, then when you come and you take communion together, we're doing it in an unworthy way. Boasting in status, wealth, power, or noble birth. If we're claiming that amongst us, this is why I'm important. I've been here for a long time. My family's been here for a long time. He says, no, it's an unworthy manner. Exercising liberty to do harm to others. There are people, I can hurt them for whatever reason. No, now when we come together, we're doing it an unworthy way. Imposing cultural demands on others. This is a way in which we can take communion in an unworthy way. Also this, when we create divisions in the church, we are causing us to take it in an unworthy manner. It actually says when we let people go hungry, when we don't meet needs, it's causing us that ultimately we're not going to take communion in a worthy manner. Despising or humiliating others with class distinctions, offending ethnically diverse others within the church. Well, you're a little different in our church from your backgrounds. And so Paul ends in chapter 11 by saying, now we gather together and you're going to remember his death and you're going to remember his resurrection. Don't do it in an unworthy manner. It's not good for us to come together in unity and take of this bread and drink of this cup and remember his death and resurrection and yet still live disharmoniously, live with with anger and strife. Let it not be. And so we're going to take communion. I just want to throw up a couple questions for you to consider your own heart, okay? Here's the questions. 1, have I pursued peace? Have you been pursuing peace with people in our church? Number 2, am I bitter towards anyone? Is there someone, man, you just got some anger growing there? Am I marked more by love and affection or by anger and offense? How are you known? What marks your life? Do I refer to them more than we when talking about any group of believers? Well, they're the young people. They like that. They're the older people. They like that. No, we, the church, live in harmony. Can I sincerely embrace with love all who would join me in communion today? We just think in this room, are we actually loving one another? Or is there tension between you and someone else in this room? If that's the case, then here's what I'd encourage you to do. Either deal with it or don't take communion. Deal with it. We're going to have time to pray. You could literally get up and go talk to someone. Say, forgive me, or I forgive you. That could happen. Or maybe you say, that's a conversation that has to happen later. That's fine. But don't take communion then. Just let it pass. Because it's better for your soul and heart to let it pass than take it in an unworthy manner. So Jason's going to come and he's going to play the piano. We're going to have the guys go back and get the communion ready for us. They're going to come and we're going to pass out the bread. You're going to take it and just take some time. You can think about these questions. Just evaluate your own heart. I'll come back up here. We'll take it together as one church, remember, in his body. Then we'll pass out the cup. Again, you'll have time to pray. And then I will come back up here and we'll take it and remember his blood that was shed for us. So just take a moment and pray and evaluate your own hearts.